So say you are a dental assistant and you have been a dental assistant for 5 years. And at that, you are a full time dental assistant, thus averaging 40 hours a week, maybe even more, because, honestly, when you work within healthcare, overtime is mandatory. It's almost built into your schedule. So you worked as a full time dental assistant for 5 years of your life, 40 hours a week, an average week being Monday through Thursdays because regular dental practices are often closed Friday through Sunday. So you've been doing this for 5 years. And at this point you feel undervalued, unappreciated, or you lack the passion that you once had to do the things that you are currently doing as you once did it. You know what I mean? You just don't feel it anymore. So you decide to look for other employment. Yet, in the process of making this transition, and you do in fact find full time employment, you decide that you want to stay at this practice because you may like the girls there, you may appreciate the doctor, or you may be receiving some benefits. You may be getting insurance, you may be getting a discount, you may be getting free services, what have you. So you're like, I want to stay because there are some benefits here. So rather than absolving your position, you become part time. So maybe you work once out of the week, twice out of the week, maybe once out of the month, you know what I mean? Or a whole week out of the month, you know what I'm saying? Because honestly, you could probably do that in retail or fast food where you say, like, okay, I'm only going to come in once a month, but maybe like for a dental practice, I haven't done this personally, so I wouldn't know. But I would assume they would want you to be there, more days out of the week if you are doing something as minimal as like once every month. So, getting to the point, I share this example because that's quite comparable to what I'm currently experiencing at my practice of work. I have a former friend whom is a current work associate, and they found a new position elsewhere within a completely different occupational field than we currently exist within. So, of course, this individual is wanting to shout their praise, wanting to shout their glory because they have upgraded their life in a way that other people around them have yet to do or have already done, but it didn't work out as favorable as it did for this person. So nonetheless, I'm absolutely proud of this person. As a coworker, as a former friend, I'm proud of this person for making this change. But what I find to be so interesting about this person making this shift is they always find the need to assert that they have made this shift in a way that no one else has. Like, for example, we were having simple conversation of work, and everyone was discussing the same sentiments that this individual once discussed, how they felt underappreciated, they felt overworked and underpaid. And of course, this comment could be seen as senseless, but it too was also insensitive because somebody else was talking and they were sharing their sentiments on our current place of work, and basically they were like, oh, I wish I could relate, but no, I can't relate. Thank God. Da 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 da. Like, it's almost like adding insult to injury. Like, you don't have to keep on pushing or pressing the notion that you're happy outside of where you currently are, because no matter what, you still come back to the same place of work that you once felt undervalued and underappreciated at. You know what I mean? So I really wanted to share this commentary because often people love to assert their happiness, but when I make an analysis on this former friend, whom is my current work associate, it's like, yes, your environment is changing, but how is your character developing? You know what I mean? Because it's almost like this notion of Harvard students. You come from a city where you're the smartest kid, then you go to Harvard and you realize you're not the smartest kid. You don't have the most, connective ties. You may not have the best network, but you will go back home and still perpetuate this narrative as if you are the smartest person, because quite literally in this small fish tank of a city you are, but in reality, within a grand scheme, you're not. So it's kind of like this notion where, like, this individual always tries to assert, like, I'm just doing better, like, I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. And that is absolutely appropriate for the transition that they made, coming from being underappreciated and undervalued and underserved to going somewhere that is absolutely fulfilling. But at the same time, within retrospect, when the former friend, whom is a current work associate, asserted themselves to the conversation of occupational disdain, there proved to be a lack of value to their interjection, as they asserted a dissonance rather than providing any constructive feedback and or criticism. Like, for example, if I were to be in conversation with my fellow coworker whom was discussing their occupational disdain, yet the tone of conversation shift to mortality and they're discussing the loss of a parental influence or the loss of, kin, I'm never going to assert to my coworker how I cannot relate to them, although I can very well so relate to them. Let's say I couldn't. I'm never going to be like, oh, that's tough. I can't relate. My mom and daddy's still alive. My grandma is still alive. My cousin's still alive. Like, that would be so insensitive. For me personally, if I'm dealing with a situation of that nature, all I can do is provide condolences if I cannot relate. Yet if I do relate, I can provide some constructive feedback that is almost resolutionary, that will provide a possible resolve, that would aid in the conclusiveness of their grief. You know what I mean? Like, why would you say something that does not add to the substance of conversation? And that is essentially what was done by this former friend whom is a current work associate. And I think ultimately, with my personal analysis of this individual, they're too concerned with the external value of things, yet you really have to assess the internal value. Even utilizing the fable tale, I'm not really sure. I haven't been in a literature class in a really long time. Don't come for me. But when you're assessing the narrative of the tortoise and the hare had the advantage initially, yet in the end, the tortoise was triumphant. So you can't always assess one's value. You can't always look at someone's journey for how the progress takes action. To experience a movement, you must give momentum, and momentum is built. Some people build their momentum a little longer than others, but there still will be a movement that takes place. And however long you move is on the basis of your momentum. And a part of your momentum in this hypothetical sense has a lot to do with your humility. You have to understand that when you acquire assets, it is easily it is just as liable, not just as easy, but yeah, I mean, it is just as easy, but you are most liable to lose it than you are to keep it. So nonetheless, just a sense of humility. When you develop a sense of humility, you are able to expand a sense of perspective, at least from my experience, because there have been many times at which I've been humble. Just as my former friend and current work associate, I once worked at this location as a full-time associate for about 4 to 5 years. And I felt underappreciated. I was undervalued. I was overworked and underpaid. So I decided to seek other employment. I decided to pursue other realms of occupation, thus leading me to my academic pursuit of dental assisting and also leading me to my pursuit of the Europe program, where I was adjacent to prestigious banks or prestigious, companies. So nonetheless, I share all this to say, like, me and my former friend, whom is my current work associate, we're very much so the same. When I go to work at this common ground of employment, I usually just go there for quick payments. I usually go there for the sake of getting my hair done or paying a portion of my tuition. I don't really go there because I need to go there, yet I do go there to a degree because I do need to go there for the benefits that it provides. If I want a discounted rate, if I want something to be insured, like, I have to go to this place and work to receive that benefit. So nonetheless, like, I'm humbled. In order for me to have the extensive resume that I have, just briefly referencing my experience with Europe and my experience as a dental assistant, in order for me to have this extensive resume, I had to fail, I had to succeed, I had to go to trial and triumph just to, develop that type of rapport. So nonetheless, I say all this to say, when you have to constantly assert your accomplishments, when you have to constantly assert your happiness, are you really happy? Are you really accomplished? Because Beyonce doesn't have to tell me over and over how many Grammys that she won, how awarded she is, how decorated she is, how accomplished she is. We know. We don't have to, she doesn't have to always say that. You know what I mean? That's like people that are rich having to constantly note that they are rich. You don't have to wear a bunch of chains. You don't have to wear a bunch of diamonds in your ears to assert to me that you're rich. I know Jay-Z's rich and he doesn't have to wear those chains. So I really just wanted to share this perspective because it seems as if this individual is overly asserting their happiness when they return to this place that once made them unhappy, which is absolutely understandable. Yet nonetheless, when this individual too returns to this current place of work, they reveal their regressive tendencies. This individual often has a tendency of initiating conversations at which They only do it for the mere purpose to overassert themselves within it. So take, for example, a conversation of a simple greeting, quite like the one I discussed previously. They're going to say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then you're going to respond with however you're actually doing, or, whatever is appropriate in that moment. So the only reason why this person is going to even initiate the conversation in such a manner is because they know in turn you're going to respond and ask them, "Well, how are you doing? Since you asked me how I am, like, how are you?" And they're going to further detail what they already wanted to detail at the initiation of this greeting. You know what I mean? That is what that person does. This person is very, like, tone deaf. Like, for example, this too reminds me of a paternal cousin of mine. So this is my paternal cousin through marriage. His stepfather is my father's brother. His biological father passed away within infancy and or adolescence, so he grew up without his biological father, yet my uncle came in to compensate that lack of paternal influence, while also fulfilling the role unto my paternal cousin as his father. My uncle is a well to do man, so when my aunt married him, he was in the military, and she was able to leverage hypergamy, as once he retired, he also acquired another job that basically presented him with more financial freedom. It granted him more money. So now he works for a prestigious airline at which he's making lucrative amount of money. You know what I mean? So since he's making a lot of money, his wife is acquiring a lot of money. And because his wife has acquired a lot of money, his children are basking in the wealth that their parents yield, because she too was able to develop a career while being in this marriage due to her husband's affluency, granting her the leisure to pursue academia. So for the most part, they black affluency, black wealth, you know what I mean? And I ain't mad at it. So nonetheless, my paternal cousin always received whatever it is that he requested. So say, for example, he wanted an iPod, because I wanted an iPod as a child. And when I wanted my iPod, I was hoping to receive it on Christmas. Yet prior to receiving this gift, I had to proposition my parents. I'm like, "Hey, let me do this PowerPoint so I can assure that I get this iPod for Christmas." Whereas for my cousin, he already knew whatever it is that he wanted, he was going to get. He didn't have to proposition, he didn't have to pry, he didn't have to pander. Like, he just knew he was going to get it on Christmas, point blank period. He probably knew he was going to get it the day that he requested it. So that's kind of the privilege that he grew up within. And also I feel like he was afforded this privilege because his mother had a lot of internal damage from childhood, and the progression from then on that she had to repair. Yet I think she had this assumption that once I have this child, I'm going to receive that unconditional love that I don't yield for myself and was never yielded unto me. Yet unfortunately, that unconditional love that she was attempting to develop by giving him whatever it is that he wanted, enabling him, she essentially developed a dynamic between herself and her child where she created a conditional form of love. My cousin's love is a contingency. My cousin only loves his mother because what she can do for him. So I say all this to say, looking at my cousin now, he would always yield his wealth. He would always discuss, like, we've been able to go here. We got this much money, that much money. Well, you're older now and you don't have any friends. You don't have any family, because honestly, from this enablance, he has developed like a lot of volatile tendencies. I'm not going to suggest that he has psychiatric issues, but definitely very violent. He lacks the social and emotional restraint to just exist as one normally would within the face of adversity or tranquility. So nonetheless, nobody wants to be around him, but he's still yielding his wealth. He'll still post how he's in the studio. He'll still post his car, etc., etc. But the car that you have now is in your father's name. The apartment that you live in is in your mother's name. The only thing that's in your name, according to another cousin of ours, is your legal record, your felonies, your misdemeanor. You're sad and lonely. You're so sad and lonely. You know what I mean? Like, people who overly assert their wealth, people that overly assert their happiness, that's when I then begin to question, like, are you really happy? Do you really got money? Like, you say you got money. If you have to overly assert these things, like every time someone sees you or whenever you're presented with an audience, I don't think you're really happy. I don't really think you're as wealthy as you say you are. For a fact, I know you aren't.